Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. We're talking World Series. We're going to cover the NFL, the picks for the week, and all the news from this week. And then we'll get into a little college football as well this weekend. That and so much more. That's what's cooking on today's
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove Podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Welcome into another edition of the Sports Podcast. La Terrain, watches and accessories. It's always a good idea to have a classic watch on hand, something that can look fantastic with a suit, or just as great, muddy on the shooting range. The Navigator Flagger style pilot watch from La Terrain is the gold standard of functional classics. Especially if you want to stand out from the crowd, you can visit la-terrain.com and use the code SportsStove for 10% off your purchase. Welcome into the episode tonight. Joining me as he usually does is my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing tonight?
Doing good on this nice fall night.
Yeah, got a little crisp tonight, and excited to see how the weather continues to turn a little bit and everything going forward. But nonetheless, we are got a lot to talk about tonight, including the World Series. And let's start with that, Dad. The series is tied 1-1. And what are your thoughts so far on the World Series this year?
Well, we had said that, this should be good baseball, and I think that's what it's going to be. I haven't gotten to see a whole lot of it. I know I watched a little bit of the start of the first game, and boy, in the first inning, you started out with a home run and then a great defensive play, and said, boy, this is what I think it's going to be. So, be interesting. Of course, the injury to Atlanta's pitcher may affect things down the line there in a big way. But the Braves are, they've come ready to play, so it should be a good series. Hopefully, it'll go 6-7 games, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that injury really, I think, does a big number to Atlanta. On the Belly Up Fantasy Live's World Series preview episode, I said Astros in 5, and that was before the injury. And even now, I begin to think, man, I'm not sure. I like Ian Anderson, who pitches the game 3 for Atlanta, but they don't have any depth now in their rotation, which is going to cause major issues there on top of it all. I think Houston ends up winning this series, but there's a good home field advantage in Atlanta, isn't there?
Yes, there is. The crowd will be so excited. It's been a while since being in the World Series, and I think it will be, a tough place to play in some ways. So I think Atlanta can stay in this a little longer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they can. They're in the World Series, but as far as will they, I don't think they will. I think Houston wins out at this point. Personally, that's just my opinion. Interesting baseball news, Dad. I haven't had a chance to ask you about this. I don't even know if you've seen this or not. But PETA, the people who are a little crazy about the animals and things, they said, requested that baseball change the term bullpen to arm barn. So, do you think that bullpen is an offensive term to bulls all across the world, and that they should change the term bullpen to arm barn moving forward?
Well, I'll have to say I don't think I've ever heard a bull complain about it, so I don't know. That has really taken it too far. I think when you get into sports and get into things that are so ingrained and been there so long, I mean, there are some things maybe that are offensive and should be changed. A lot of things have been changed, but I don't think bullpen is a problem.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. It's like some people just don't have enough to do in their lives to come up with some of the stuff. They're working on just getting some publicity, and it's working for them. So congratulations, PETA. Enjoy your publicity while it lasts here as well. Dad, a question that has come up a lot this week with the World Series is the Houston Astros have a history of cheating. This year, as far as we know, they're not cheating. I compared the Astros to Barry Bonds, saying that if they win this year and they win clean, people will understand that, will recognize that. History will remember them as a team that won the World Series, but they'll always be remembered as a cheater, just like Barry Bonds is considered by many people a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest baseball players to play. Yet, along with that, the caveat is, well, and he also cheated. He also took steroids. Do you think that there's enough years that can go by that people will kind of forget about what the Astros did, or do you think that's something that's going to linger?
Well, I don't think they'll forget, but I think it's a different situation because it's a team. It won't be the same team. I think if the Astros continue to have success, I don't think it'll be a blight, on the organization like, oh, in 10 years they're winning, but yeah, they cheated back then. It's true. There'll always be history, and there'll always be a situation, and the organization did condone it, to whatever extent. But I think the Astros can get past that because, it'll be a different team every year. And especially when you get a few years down the line, even this year, if they win, I don't think anyone will say, well, wow, that's because they cheated. But, there'll always be that mark that the Astros were the team that cheated and won the World Series.
Yeah, the people who bring it up now are the people like Boston fans, which is interesting because Alex Cora is their manager. But Boston fans, Chicago fans, Dodger fans, those kinds of people that are just jealous that they're not there this year again, and they got to find something to gripe about. So that's what they'll gripe about. Instead of griping about their own teams, they'll gripe about the teams that made it past them and ahead as well. The World Series is continuing to go, and it should be at the very least, I think, good games the rest of the way. Even if the Astros do what I say they'll do and win out, I don't think the games will be blowouts every night. And tonight, Ian Anderson again on the mound for the Braves, or this next game, Ian Anderson on the mound for the Braves tomorrow night, I guess it is. And he's a really good pitcher and has a good opportunity there against Houston as well. One of my childhood memories, Dad, is Atlanta Braves baseball. On the television. I didn't like the Braves, but I loved hearing the Tomahawk chant going on in Atlanta back in the old days, the Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Schmaltz days. That was always a really cool sound to turn on the TV and hear night baseball and the crowd with the Tomahawk chant, and it was really neat. So, I asked this question on another show, but what is your greatest World Series memory? Not necessarily the team that you cheered for, but something that just stands out in your mind from World Series history.
Well, you have Reggie Jackson with the home runs, with the Yankees. That was quite a game and everything there. The Kirk Gibson home run, that was really something from that standpoint. I remember when I was first old enough, a lot of people followed baseball, and I did. I had an uncle that listened to baseball games on the radio all the time. And I guess, the first World Series I remember, I was not a Cardinal fan, but it was the Cardinals and the Red Sox in 1967. And that's when, from there on out, I always kind of took notice of the World Series and had a chance to watch some there. Been a lot of great moments in the World Series, no doubt about that, and a lot of heroes, Joe Carter, Kirby Puckett, a lot of ones around. Some of the older ones, with the Giants, that was a little bit before my time from there. So, I would have to say, again, I'm not a Yankee fan, but boy, Reggie Jackson and, being Mr. October, and he really, had some great World Series.
Kirby Puckett's one thing I remember as a kid watching the World Series as well. My kids could care less about baseball on TV. They'll occasionally sit down and watch a Brewers game with me, but overall, that one doesn't keep their interest. So they don't have any World Series memories at this point. Anywho, let's get on to football. And an exciting week of football ahead. Actually, tonight, if you're listening to us live, Green Bay and Arizona will be kicking off shortly. If you're listening to us on Unhinged Radio, you already know the result, so you can skip over the next 1 or 2 minutes of this episode. But Nonetheless, Green Bay comes in. They're kind of decimated, aren't they? They're missing their top 3 receivers, one with COVID, one without COVID, but out because of COVID, and one with an injury. That leaves basically Randall Cobb, EQ St. Brown, the rookie Amari Rogers, guys like Malik Taylor, who most people have never heard of, those kinds of things. Does it matter? Is my question to you, because Aaron Rodgers is still healthy and playing. So does it really matter that these receivers are gone?
Well, I mean, yes, because they're so good, especially, Devontae Adams, but again, gave you quite a few weapons. Again, it'll be an interesting, because this is a chance for Aaron Rodgers to really, really show that, hey, he's the quarterback and the system, and make everything work. Again, I think the key here will be, and again, the Packers have been, beat up in a lot of positions. They got, of course, Jair Alexander out, which has been a big thing on the defense. Preston Smith is going to play tonight. That will help a little bit, but the defense will need to keep him in it, and the defensive coordinator is out with COVID too. Now, Jerry Gray's called games before, and I know the defensive coordinator's been in on virtual meetings, but boy, there's just a lot of things that, it's not business as usual, but I think they've really rallied around this. And the deal is, hey, we can show that we really are a good team, and we'll go out and win under these situations. Arizona, you said, Arizona's not going to win them all. So, again, I think Arizona would be very much up for this game. Of course, they've lost J.J. Watt. We may talk about that in a little bit. But I think, yes, they've lost so many weapons on offense. They'll have to change the plan. I think LaFleur can do that. The question will be, can Arizona shut it down? Because they won't be as multidimensional in some ways. Again, the offensive line's gotten better. If they can run the ball, then, hey, they can, Rodgers can find openings. There'll be no doubt about that. These guys that haven't played a lot, they're going to have to catch it when they get the opportunity. But Packers have been big on the next man up, and it's worked for them in a lot of ways. So it'll be an interesting game tonight.
Yeah, Arizona's the favorite by 6.5. And I would probably pick Arizona to win the game. But having said that, I think Green Bay's less predictable with Devontae Adams out. And now you said it before, even though people knew they were throwing to Devontae Adams, they still couldn't stop it. So that's a pretty big thing. But at the same time, now you've got no one. I say no one. These guys do their, watch the videos, and they understand more than we do. But I think this is going to be a showing and a reminder to people who say Green Bay has to draft a quarterback in the first, or a receiver in the first round. This will show the people who don't pay attention to the Packers, they actually have a really deep receiver core. And even though they're out their top 3 guys, which obviously they're top 3 for a reason, they're very good. You're going to bring in Randall Cobb, who has the experience, and he's played well this year. EQ is a guy, St. Brown, who Aaron Rodgers has spoken about how excited he is that he's back on the active roster and loves his work ethic, trusts him. Malik Taylor had a great preseason, which means very little, but he's shown that he can play as well. And then I think it's a big game for Robert Tonyan, the tight end, as well tonight, and Aaron Jones, the running back. A lot of opportunities out there for these guys. Arizona, on the other hand, you mentioned it, J.J. Watt is injured, out for the season. I didn't see this one coming. Got the alert last night on that. That hurts Arizona, but what they're built pretty well. They got a solid defense, a good defense, and they've got a phenomenally deep offense as well. Even with the addition of Zach Ertz, that just adds to it there as well. So I'm not sure that losing J.J. Watt is as big a deal for this game as losing your top 3 receivers would be there as well. But you talked about an opportunity for Rodgers to prove some things. It's a big opportunity for Kyler Murray to prove some things tonight as well, and to kind of put his name atop the MVP list with a big game tonight against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. This could be the spot where he puts his name there at the top. Josh Allen's name is up there as well. And this also could be the game where Aaron Rodgers puts his name back on top of the MVP list, depending on what he does tonight. So there is definitely some things at stake tonight for these quarterbacks and for these teams, of course, as well. As you could be talking about fighting for a number 1 seed come playoff time as well, where this tiebreaker result would be interesting nonetheless there. One of the things I want to talk about, I guess want to spend too much time on, but it's interesting. Former Green Bay Packer and retired offensive lineman TJ Lang, he came out with a tweet today asking a question about Allen Lazard. Allen Lazard is missing this game because he tested negative for COVID and is not vaccinated, whereas Davante Adams is vaccinated. He tested positive. And being around Davante Adams is part of the reason why Lazard is missing this game. But at the end of the day, Dad, we continue to see the politics trying to control sports and the way that they're doing this. And being that Allen Lazard is unvaccinated, even though he doesn't have COVID, he's still not allowed to play tonight because of the mandates and the ways that the things are set up. The protocols are set up in the NFL this year. I mean, does it make any sense? Is it wise? Or is it just a way to push people around a little bit?
Well, again, this was talked about before the season and knew this was going to come up at some point. I'm sorry it came up with the Packers, but yes, the NFL is trying to control this situation, trying to intimidate people, intimidate teams to where they will force people from there. I mean, if all that information is correct, then that doesn't make any sense. Why a guy is going to miss a game when he doesn't have COVID? Again, the NFL's decided that they're going to force everybody's hand on this. I don't think it's just out of safety. I don't think this is preventing a breakout that's going to affect hundreds of people, or definitely not thousands of people from there. And I don't think that's why this is happening. I think they do want to control people, and I think it's unfortunate. To be interesting to see what kind of backlash may come out of this. But again, for the most part, everybody in the NFL is vaccinated. I think most of the Packers are. I knew there were some that were not. I did not know who, because that's a fairly private thing. And I'm a little surprised this came out this way on this time, but didn't know if we would know that. But major sports have put a lot of emphasis on it to get that done. And to me, the idea, boy, should you be vaccinated? Well, you can still catch it. You can still test positive. People still have trouble that are vaccinated because of the vaccination. I mean, they don't have this worked out. So to continue to force it on everybody doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we're bleeding out of sports here, and I want to be a little careful with that because we do try to just stick to it here. But, it's interesting. I mean, the guy that's vaccinated has it. They say, oh, you got to get vaccinated. Well, but you can still catch it. You can still pass it. That's a whole nother conversation. We're going to lose listenership because of that. But nonetheless, I just agree with Aaron Rodgers. And that is, if you want to get it and you think you should get it, get it. And if you don't want to get it or don't think you should get it, then don't get it. And respect each other's decisions to do so. Don't go out of your way to be unhealthy. Obviously, don't go out of your way to cause problems. But it is what it is, and they knew, the players who are unvaccinated knew coming into the season that there are going to be things that they are going to have to put up with as a result of this decision that they make. So we do see it affect the Packers tonight. It won't be that big of a deal because of who it is. It's Allen Lazard. It's not Davante Adams. So at the end of the day, most people will look right past it and move on with life. Speaking of moving on, let's get on to the football games this week. We're going to do it a little differently tonight, Dad. We're going to start with our pick six, and then we'll run through the games afterwards. But we can talk about the games that we're picking first and go through those. So we'll kind of go back and forth this week on picks. Who do you have as your first pick six of the week?
I'll take Cleveland to cover against Pittsburgh.
All right, so Cleveland, they've got some health issues, right? I have not seen. I assume that they get the quarterback back this week. They played, of course, with the backup last week, but they are 3.5-point favorites at home against Pittsburgh. And you know me, Dad, I think Pittsburgh is no good. But what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, again, I think Cleveland is proving they're the real deal, and they're going to be very, competitive. Again, that division, and maybe it's the best division right now, are going to be one of them. But I think Cleveland has proved, they can play, and even with the back, if it has to be the backup quarterback, again, I think it's a division game, so the Steelers are going to play tough against them. But when I looked at all the games, I just felt like, Cleveland ought to win that, and they can cover.
I agree with you. They should win it, but I disagree with you that says that they're the real deal. 4-3 Cleveland team can't stay healthy. They should be great at defense, and they should be really good on offense, but they have had some major injury issues. To me, they've not proven much of anything just yet. And although they should beat Pittsburgh, in my opinion, as well, I don't think they're the real deal just yet. I think they're close, but not quite there yet. I did not pick that game, so I'll give you my first game, Dad, and that is Carolina +3 versus Atlanta. Atlanta is home in this game. The Panthers are 3-4, coming off a really ugly game last week. The Falcons 3-3. And things seem to start to look like they're clicking a little bit with the Atlanta offense finally, especially Kyle Pitts. But I still go with Carolina +3. I think they bounce back this week against this Atlanta team. Atlanta's not very good. They're not horrible, as many people think they are, but they're not very good either at the same time. And I think Carolina can cover. Any thoughts on that game?
Well, again, Carolina, the last couple of weeks to me, should have won. I picked them, and they didn't. It looks like they're doubting their quarterback. And I like their coach, and we had high hopes at the first of the year, but I don't know. And Atlanta, doesn't have anything to prove. There isn't high expectations there, but they're playing well. This game scared me when I looked at it as far as picking somebody.
I want to go back to that thing you said, that Carolina appears to be doubting their quarterback. And I disagree with that as well. I think that the media and I think that a lot of the fan bases are doubting the quarterback. They benched him, but they were down by 30 points. I mean, what's the point of keeping him out there? They're not going to come back and win. Get your backup in, keep your starter healthy, and move on to the next game. I like P.J. Walker, as a matter of fact, the backup quarterback, but I think Sam Darnold is secure in his job there, and I think, like I said, I think they rebound and get back to it as well. Your second game in the pick six.
I have Indianapolis covering over Tennessee. I think Indianapolis is improving. And, of course, this is a conference game. It's a game they need to win to stay in it. And the way they're playing, I think they can. Of course, the Titans have played really good in the last couple games. So it should be interesting, but I'll pick Indianapolis.
You've kind of been in on Indy now for a couple weeks, and they are the favorite at home against Tennessee this week, 1.5-point favorites there as well. You mentioned Tennessee has played well. It seems like Tennessee beats the teams that they're not supposed to beat and then loses to the teams that they're supposed to win against. But I say that they beat Seattle at Seattle. They beat Indianapolis at Tennessee. They lost to the Jets. They beat the Jaguars, beat the Bills, and lost to the Cardinals. So it's an interesting team, a team that I don't think anybody knows who they are at this point other than a really good running team with Derrick Henry. This one was a little too close for me, the 1.5 points. I strayed away from this game here as well. I would love for Indianapolis to win. And you're right, they need this one. They desperately need to win this one, being that it's a division battle and Tennessee leads the division currently. My second one is Miami +14 versus Buffalo. Again, division game. Buffalo's been really good. Miami's not been good. But when you go division games for me and you've got massive spreads, to me that's a big red flag. and I'm going to jump on that one. Even though it's in Buffalo, even though the Dolphins have only won one game, I'm not saying they win this game, but I think plus 14, I can do that one. So I go Miami plus 14. Your thoughts on that game?
I agree with the spread being so big is why I didn't pick that one. I do think Buffalo will win, and Buffalo may very well cover the spread. They need to come back and look good after their last game. It was when I looked at, there were other games would be a better pick with that big a spread.
All right, what's your third game of the week?
I have Tampa Bay covering over New Orleans. I think Tampa's really good. And I don't think New Orleans has, won some games and played tough, but I think Tampa can cover that.
Yeah, Tampa's 4.5-point favorite there. New Orleans is another one of those teams that I just don't know about. I'm never sure what we're going to get from them each week. And 1 week it could be really good, and the next week really bad. So those always scare me to pick those games. Tampa should win this game. Jameis, of course, is playing against his old team. I was thinking about this, Dad. Jameis, he's not been as bad as he was in Tampa, but he's also not been as good as he was in Tampa. It's kind of a weird thing that Jameis has fallen into, and an interesting game against Tampa this week as well. I stayed away from that game. My third game is the Chargers, 4.5-point favorites over the Patriots. I think the Patriots, I always have a hard time picking against the Patriots just because of their past. But they don't have Tom Brady anymore. And I go Chargers minus 4.5, the favorites over New England. I think the Chargers are one of the best teams, if not the best team in the AFC this year. And this is a game that they should win. Your thoughts on that one?
Well, again, I hope the Chargers win, and I agree. I think they were going to be one of the better teams, but boy, they really got skunked here not long ago. And so I don't know this one. If I was going to pick an upset game, which I did not pick this one, I considered this because, again, you just don't know in New England who's going to show up and who isn't. And, they do have a defense, but, the Chargers should win this and should cover it, you would think.
Yeah, there are two losses this year for the Chargers. They lost to the Cowboys in week 2 by 3 points. That was just a bad game all the way around. Then they got blown out by the Ravens in their last game, 34-6. But what I've learned, Dad, is that even the best of teams have one bad week throughout the season. And so I'm comfortable with that one. Your fourth game of the week.
This will surprise you, but I'm going to pick the Dallas Cowboys. I don't do that very often, but I think they'll cover Minnesota. I think Dallas, is playing very well. Now, again, I guess there's questions whether Dak Prescott's going to play or not, but they can beat Minnesota, and the spread's not too big. I think they can cover that.
Yep, I picked that one as well. 100% with you on that one. Dallas 2.5 over Minnesota. Minnesota's not been great. They do have a talented offense. Dallas's defense has gotten better this season as well. I would be shocked if Dak doesn't play this week. And they have a dynamic offense. Ezekiel Elliott's finally running like he's supposed to run as well. And so, yep, I'm in on that one too. So that's 4 games for me, 4 games for you. Who's your fifth game?
I'm going to take San Francisco to cover over Chicago. I think Chicago's in trouble. I think it's kind of stick a fork in them. They're done. I think they're going to keep falling apart. San Francisco needs to get a win to stay in this thing at all. And again, I would think San Francisco can win and can cover this.
Does Matt Nagy get fired after this week?
He could. He very easily could. Again, I don't think it'll take too many more losses because once the season, Bear fans will probably still think they can come back for another game or two, but for the most part, I think he's nearing the end.
I didn't pick this game, but I agree with you. San Francisco should win this game. They're the better team. But the Bears have the better record currently, 3-4 versus 2-4. But nonetheless, I stayed away from that one. My fifth game is the Jacksonville Jaguars, plus 3.5 versus Seattle. Geno Smith's still the quarterback. He's not bad, but I just have to think Jacksonville can get some things together against a backup quarterback and have some opportunities to win the game. So I went Jacksonville plus 3.5 versus Seattle. Any thoughts on the Jaguars versus the Seahawks?
Well, I'd be all for that, for the Jaguars beating the Seahawks. Seahawks, another team that, again, for them to stay down, I enjoy watching that. I don't know. You don't really ever know with Seattle. Of course, again, with Wilson not back yet, it does make them a lot more vulnerable.
100%. They are at home, which scares me a little bit. But if they're at home and the Jaguars are a 3.5-point dog, I mean, typically the home team gets 3 points anyhow. So they're just saying a half a game worse. That to me says, yeah, Jacksonville's got a shot at this one this week. Your game 6, last game that you picked.
I'm going to take Denver over the Washington football team. Again, I think Denver is competitive. I don't think they're an elite team. But again, Washington has just really, really struggled in a lot of ways. And again, with the spread there at 3, I picked Denver.
Well, I'm glad you picked Denver because I picked Washington. This was my last game that I picked as well. I went with the Washington football team. I'm a doubter in Denver. I don't think that Denver's a very good team. And they've got some young talent and some opportunity. I just think that they're just not where they need to be. And Washington, I think, is a better team than the way they played. And I think eventually they come around a little bit as well. And so I'm going with Washington plus 3. You're going Denver minus 3 in that game there. Let's look at the other games that we haven't picked that are still on the schedule for this week. Let's see here. We've got Philadelphia and Detroit. Ooh, what a game.
Wow, what a game.
Is it going to be Jalen Hurts going off or Jared Goff getting in the win column?
Like you said, I think last week, Detroit's going to win one somewhere down the line. This would be a great opportunity. But, boy, the Eagles, you don't know. They're not going to do anything special. But, Jalen Hurts, they get a big game. You never know. It's hard to say. Detroit, I thought about it, I've even picking this game, but you just don't know. This shouldn't be a real great game to watch, but you never know.
2 of the head-scratching head coaching hires in the offseason, Houston was the 3rd, but Philadelphia and Detroit went interesting directions with their coaching hires. So far, it's not paid off. But I will say Detroit has played hard every single week. They've not given up. They love their coach, and they're playing hard for him. It's just not resulting in wins. And being at home against a not very good Philadelphia team, I think Detroit probably gets the win here. I didn't pick this game, but now that I'm looking at it, I probably should have. But anyways, I think Detroit gets the win there. Cincinnati and the Jets. The Jets have a backup quarterback this week after the injury of the rookie Wilson. Cincinnati's 10.5-point favorites on the road in New York. I stayed away from this one, too, because it seems like the kind of game that maybe Cincinnati doesn't take serious enough, and the Jets are able to do a few small things that just keep them close in this game. I think Cincinnati wins, but I'm not sure they win by 10.5. They might win by 30, though. I mean, the way that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow have been playing so far this season.
Yeah, you're right. They could win by 30, and they should win big because I think – again, it would be like you said. The thing will be, will they not take them seriously? Will they look past them? But Cincinnati, is definitely a dangerous team. They're young, and when you're young, that's going to show up at different times, especially in the playoffs. But if they want to keep rolling, then this is the kind of game they need to not just win, but they need to really, really roll.
Had Cincinnati drafted Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase, what would their record be today? They're 5-2 currently. If they didn't take Chase and they drafted Sewell, what do you think their record would be?
Maybe 3-4, something like that. I mean, offensively, Chase, just fits well with Burrow, and it just adds another dimension.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And we're going to have you switch over. You're starting to break up a little bit there, Dad. So we're going to get that switched out real quick. But I agree. I think Cincinnati's probably in that 3-4 range. If they drafted Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase, of course, we beat the drum early and often this offseason about the importance of Cincinnati drafting the playmaker versus the offensive lineman, and so far it has paid out. For Cincinnati, and they're winning games 5-2. They're winning impressively. Jamar Chase has been phenomenal. He's the runaway rookie of the year getter right now. So I think that we'll see all of that going into place, and Cincinnati will continue to compete in the North. The season started, I said Cincinnati finished third in the North ahead of Cleveland would be better than they've been. But Baltimore continues to ball out as well. And so it's an interesting division, to say the least. All right, Dad, the Rams versus the Texans. The Rams 6-1, the Texans 1-6. The Rams are 14.5-point favorites. Here, we both stayed away from this game also. What are your thoughts on the game?
Again, the Rams should dominate it, but again, that was a big spread there, and probably safe to stay away from it. But I think the Rams are really good. The Texans are not really good, and be interesting to see if they can play like they should.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans they're not talented. They don't have the talent that they need to win football games in the NFL. They lost 31-5 last week, 31-3 the week before, 40-0 against the Bills, 24-9 against the Panthers. So that's 4 games in which they could not get the double-digit scoring. But they beat the Jaguars in week 1. They lost by 10, 31-21 against Cleveland. And they lost by 3 to New England, 25-22. So they show some fight here and there, but then they just look really, really bad the other weeks. The Rams should dominate that game for sure. Let's see here. Next game up that we did not pick is... that might be the last one. Giants-Chiefs, I guess. The Monday night game. The Chiefs, my goodness, what's wrong with the Chiefs?
Yeah, whatever's wrong with them playing the Giants should help solve it a little bit. We will see. Yeah, but the Chiefs, it's hard to know what's going on there or where they're going to end up. But again, it'd be important, like you said earlier, the Chargers to establish themselves and keep a lead, because the Chiefs at any point could start stringing wins together. But this should be a good chance for them to get back in the win column.
Well, I mean, Vegas is tied for first in the division also. So Vegas and the Chargers both over Kansas City currently. And, Kansas City's tied with Denver. So it's been really ugly for Kansas City so far. And I don't know if there's carryover from last year. Coach Reed's son had the legal issues with the DUI or whatever. I don't remember if it was a DUI or not, but he killed someone. I think it was a DUI or driving drunk. But anyways, I don't know if there's carryover from that. I don't know if there's other things going on. They have some incredible talent, especially on offense, and the offense doesn't seem to be there at this point. Now, Mahomes came out this week and told his teammates, hey, it's on me. I got to get better. Maybe he shows up and is better. Surely he's not going to be what it's looked like this season the rest of his career. Surely he'll come back around as well. You're right. The Giants are no good. Kansas City should win this game. They should be where they need to be come the end of the week and get back into the win column, get to 500. But the Giants, they can be a little frisky here and there. Kansas City's the 9.5-point favorite. And I still kind of like what the Giants have. Daniel Jones, I think, is a competent quarterback. Saquon Barkley is a great running back. The receiving core has played much better than I thought they would. There's a lot of question marks still on that team, though. They should not beat Kansas City, but you just never know on these Monday night games what'll happen. Dad, one of the things teams can do to get better is make trades. The trade deadline is coming up on Tuesday. I wrote an article on bellyupsports.com and gave it one trade asset, one trade target per team in the AFC, and then the NFC side should come out tomorrow or Saturday at some point as well. I'm in the middle of writing that, actually. I've gotten all but 4 teams done over there. But let's talk trade deadline. Are there any names out there that you think could be moved? You have the obvious Deshaun Watson, but are there any names that you think, hey, this team either they're not doing good, so maybe they would trade this guy, or any other names that pop out to you as names to watch for the trade deadline?
Well, I looked at your list there, and a few of them did jump out. One of them, I think, as far as a target, would be Cooks, the receiver from Texas. That makes a lot of sense. That someone could get him, and he could be a real help. Another guy that jumped out to me, I'm not sure that they would trade him, is the linebacker from Jacksonville,
Miles Jack. Yeah.
Great thing if somebody picked him up. The offensive lineman, I don't know if anybody's going to trade a really good offensive lineman, but a couple players you mentioned that it'd be interesting to see if they do trade him. One would be Cleveland with Kareem Hunt. Right now you need two running backs, and I'd be a little surprised, but if they could really get something there, that might be a deal. And I was real surprised to see Von Miller, but you made a wise comment there. That'd be something Belichick would do, trade them while there's still a lot of value. But Von Miller would draw a lot of interest, I would think. Those are the good ones that jumped out on the list to me.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts with Von Miller was Denver's not winning a Super Bowl this year. They're probably not winning one next year. They need to get some assets back, and Von Miller's one they can give up. They still have Bradley Chubb. They can give up. They can get a lot back for him and help in that rebuild as they move forward. You talked about Kareem Hunt. One of my thoughts with Kareem Hunt is the fact that the Browns seem to have some depth at running back outside of the Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt backfield. And we saw a couple weeks ago, Dearness Johnson, he had himself a game. Let's see, I'm trying to look up which game that was. Against Denver last week, 22 carries, 146 yards, and a touchdown. So my thought was as well, hey, if they've already got another running back there, you'll probably get more out of Kareem Hunt than you would out of this Johnson. And so, it gives you an opportunity there as well. One thing that I mentioned that you didn't bring up is I mentioned that Jacksonville should trade for Eric Bieniemy, the Kansas City offensive coordinator, and make him the head coach. We've seen John Gruden get traded in the past as a coach. I don't know that they're ready to get rid of Urban Meyer just yet. But what do you think about a coaching trade? Is there another name out there that you'd say, hey, one of these teams, Chicago, Jacksonville, whoever that looks like they're going to need a coach? Is there a guy they can acquire in the trade deadline?
No, I don't think you can really get a coach in the trade deadline. I mean, there has been trades involved later when people sign coaches in order to get people to do it, but I don't believe you actually can trade an active coach at the deadline.
Okay, let's talk about quarterbacks. Outside of Deshaun Watson, are there any quarterbacks that you see getting traded that actually could help somebody? Because you got Nick Foles. He's the third string in Chicago. If he gets traded, it's going to be for depth. He's going to be a backup somewhere for a contending team that doesn't have a good backup quarterback. But the name that I brought up was Tua Tagovailoa. Maybe he gets moved to a place like Pittsburgh or another team that's looking for a quarterback.
I don't think Tua is going anywhere, but you might be right. You're not as big on him, but we'll see where that goes. Deshaun Watson right now, with what's come up this week with the NFL, I don't know that he's going to get traded. There's just, still an awful lot of question marks about him. I think if there was a team that was going to pull off a big quarterback trade, and I don't know who it would be, but as far as who they would get, and I know you think he's safe, but would be Carolina. If somebody was going to go out and get somebody, if there was something there, somebody could really step in and play.
I don't know who it would be. They've already said they're out on Deshaun Watson. So you've got Jimmy Garoppolo. There's a possibility. You've got names that I mentioned would be Jordan Love and Marcus Mariota as guys that have either potential. Mariota's has starting experience as well. There are some quarterbacks out there, none of them superstars outside of Deshaun Watson. But to me, you look at this draft class coming in, and there's no quarterback that makes you go, oh, yeah, I can't wait to get him. So it makes more sense to take a shot on a guy like Jordan Love or to get a veteran that can be around for a few years like Garoppolo and try to do some things with them. Because I think Garoppolo's better than Teddy Bridgewater, even though I like Teddy Bridgewater. And Jordan Love, for Green Bay, let's talk about that, Dad. Jordan Love, if you trade Jordan Love, then automatically that they've worked something out with Rodgers. Rodgers is there for the rest of his career. And they could still do something even if they don't trade Jordan Love at the trade deadline. But, good night. As a Packer fan, you're a Packer owner. Are you ready to see Jordan Love shipped out?
If it'll keep Aaron Rodgers, then yes, I would agree. At this point, Jordan Love is not ready to play next year for sure. Could he be a guy in the future if he's behind Rodgers for 2 or 3, 4 more years? I think the key is going to be to keep Aaron Rodgers. I think there is a good chance of that the way the season is going right now. But, you never know about that. But, yeah, it wouldn't kill me if Jordan Love left. On the other hand, he's an unproven quantity, so you don't know.
When Brett Favre was nearing the end of his time in Green Bay, did you believe Aaron Rodgers was ready when they got rid of Brett Favre?
Yes.
You did?
He was ready at that point because he had some great preseasons. It looked like Favre maybe wasn't even going to come back one year and Rodgers was going to be the quarterback. Now, it's true his first year wasn't quite as good as the other years. But, yes, when the whole thing came up with Brett Favre, the deal was they're going to lose Aaron Rodgers and somebody's going to pick him up and he's going to be a starter and, he's going to be good for a long time. I think everyone knew that with him. That's definitely not where it is with Jordan Love, but he hadn't been around as long as Rodgers was.
All I remember about Rodgers was he always got hurt. It seemed like he'd come in for a play and break his foot or something. He was always getting injured while he was the backup. And I didn't know what he was. I didn't know what he would be. Obviously, I don't think any of us did. But looking back on it, they say, oh, yeah, in practice, it was obvious how good he was and those kinds of things. But from the outside looking in, I was okay with Favre leaving. It seemed like it was time for Favre to go. But I wasn't confident that Aaron Rodgers was going to be the next Brett Favre, the next great quarterback, the next Hall of Fame quarterback. I wasn't confident in that at all.
Well, again, that's why they made the move. They were confident in it from there. And, it's hard to look back and say now because he's proved, he's going to be one of the best. He'll go down as one of the best. And, definitely as far as the Packers have been blessed with great quarterbacks, there's always going to be 3 great ones you're going to talk about there with Starr, Favre, and Rodgers, and they're all a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't believe anybody who says they knew Rodgers would be what he is. I don't trust anybody with that. But nonetheless, he has turned out to be great. And even with all the drama this offseason, I sure hope he stays in Green Bay. Any other thoughts on the NFL before we go to college football?
Well, one thing I thought about this week and see what you think about it. We talked, last week about the NFC being real strong. And as I looked at both conferences, again, we're almost to mid-season. There's not really a mid-season this year because of the 17. But when you start looking, at this time of year, you can see where things are going to shake up. And it's interesting. The NFC is very, very strong at the top, but very weak at the bottom. When you look right now, that the third wild card team, it'd be a team that's not very good and maybe even a team without a winning record. You can get down through 6 teams pretty easy, but not at the bottom. The AFC is probably not as strong at the top, but there's going to be a real battle for the wild cards, at least the way it would look right now. It was interesting to me to think about that and look at that. Again, the NFC, I think, is definitely stronger at the top. But, when you look at the expanded playoffs and the 7th team, and again, the AFC is going to really benefit from that extra team because there's going to be, I think, a good team in that spot.
I agree with you and understand what you're saying, but let me ask it this way. How many teams do you think have a chance to win the Super Bowl?
Right now, there's probably going to be, several, because there's several good teams in the NFC, and there's probably a couple in the AFC that look that way. So right now at midseason, I think there's more. I don't think you can just say, well, it's going to be just one of these two or one or two of these three. I think it's a little more wide open right now. It may not be in 3 or 4 weeks.
All right, give me a yes or no. Super Bowl chance to win the Super Bowl. Buffalo,
Yes.
Cincinnati,
No.
Baltimore,
Yes.
Cleveland,
No.
Tennessee,
No.
Vegas,
No.
Chargers,
Be close.
Chiefs.
No.
All right, so you said yes to Buffalo and Baltimore and maybe the Chargers. So that's 3 teams in the AFC that you think have a chance to win the Super Bowl. NFC, Dallas.
No.
You're wrong there, but okay. Green Bay,
Yes.
Tampa,
Yes.
New Orleans,
No.
Arizona,
Yes.
the Rams.
Yes.
And that's really it as far as the top goes. And I throw Dallas in there too. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the NFC that I think could win the Super Bowl. You have 4, and then you only have 2 AFC teams. And I'd go Buffalo. I'd go Buffalo, the Chargers as probably my 2 teams that I think, and the Chiefs. I put the Chiefs in there too. If they all of a sudden turn things around, I think they have the talent to do it. So I would say 3 teams in the AFC, 5 teams in the NFC. You say 2, possibly 3 teams in the AFC and 4 teams in the NFC. So I think that says there the NFC is stronger because I think there's more teams that are legitimate Super Bowl contenders versus the AFC as well. Good question. I think when you start looking at it that way, it kind of starts thinning out the herd a little bit, so to say. I didn't ask about Jacksonville. You think Jacksonville can win the Super Bowl? No. They could win the first overall pick. Sorry, I accidentally turned on the volume of the Packer game there. So who's going to get the first pick? Right now we've got Houston. Let's see here. Detroit's 0-7. Houston, Jacksonville with 1 win. Miami and the Jets with 1 win. Who do you think gets the number 1 overall draft pick?
How many wins does the Giants have?
2, I think. Yeah, 2.
I still think the Giants could be the one with the first pick, but there will be Houston. Could be Detroit, and you just have to see if any of those teams, could very well be Jacksonville, but you got Jacksonville and Houston in the same division. That, could be a win for, either one of them there. And, it's hard to say, but there's going to be 4, 5, 6 teams right down there at the bottom the way it looks right now.
Yeah. If you're a quarterback needy team, you don't want to get the first pick in this draft. You want to be down in the 5, 6, 7 range where you can take a guy that you like at quarterback and it not be that big of a deal. If you're sitting at number 1, there's not a quarterback right now that should be taken number 1 overall in the NFL draft. And so you don't want that. But if you're a team like Jacksonville, well, you got Trevor Lawrence. So, yeah, you want the best player in the draft, and you're okay to be that number 1 spot there as well. I don't think it's New York. New York's going to win enough games to stay out of number 1. But Detroit, they're really, really bad. Jacksonville's really bad. Houston's really bad as well. The Jets are really bad. The Jets could end up with the number 1 overall draft pick as well because they are not good this year either. All right, quickly, we got just a couple minutes left. Let's switch over to college football. A couple big games this weekend. Let's start with the Michigan battle, Michigan versus Michigan State. Everybody remembers the big blocked punt, and that's showing over and over and over again this week. But Michigan's the favorite in this game. They're the number 6 over the number 8, I believe, Michigan State. Your thoughts on the battle, the in-state game there?
Well, again, I mean, I'd be for Michigan State, and it'd be interesting to see. With them both being undefeated, this is obviously going to knock somebody down quite a bit, and should be a very interesting game. I haven't watched either one play very much. I've just seen their records, and again, I don't know that they both still have a lot of football left to play after this game, but the loser is going to really hurt them.
I trust Michigan State more than I trust Michigan. So for that reason, I'm picking Michigan State, and they're at home. That helps, but it's an interesting game. How is Wisconsin favored? They're 3.5-point favorites. They're at home against Iowa. Number 9, Iowa, 6-1. Wisconsin's 4-3. Wisconsin has been favored in some really weird games this year. Yeah. How are they the favorite over Iowa?
I don't know. I don't know how that would be. I think Iowa, of course, they have the one loss now, but this is a chance for them. That is a very interesting game, but I don't know why Wisconsin would be favored.
The other Big Ten game is Penn State versus Iowa State. Penn State dropped all the way to number 20. Ohio State is now an 18.5-point favorite over Penn State this week. Ohio State seems to be coming along and might be a legit threat in the Big Ten again.
Yes. Yeah. And this is a big game for them. Penn State is definitely down now. They're not going to challenge in the Big Ten. And this will be a real test for Ohio State. Ohio State go in and dominate this. They're going to jump up in the rankings, and it's going to help them a lot here at the end.
Yeah, and they're really clicking now, and that's a big thing for them. And again, they can win the Big Ten, still go to the playoffs, which we'll talk about in just a moment. In the SEC, Georgia and Florida playing in Jacksonville, and one of the more exciting games each year. But Georgia's only a 2-touchdown favorite over Florida. They've been 3-touchdown favorites over other teams in the SEC games against Arkansas and Kentucky. Florida has not looked great, and yet they're only a 14-point underdog in this game. Does Florida have a chance to keep this one close?
No, I don't think they'll keep it close, but I think 14 points makes sense. I mean, the Gators, were ranked earlier, and they have some ability, but I think Georgia's going to continue to play well through the rest of the year, and they should handle this without any problem.
Yeah, like I said, Georgia was not triple digits, but 20-plus point favorites over Kentucky. Kentucky beat Florida 20-3. I don't think that Florida's played Arkansas yet this year. I don't think they're playing them at all this year, actually. But nonetheless, Florida, they lost to LSU last week, 49-42. They beat Vandy 42-0. Congratulations. They beat Tennessee 38-14. They lost to Alabama, in a close one. But since that Alabama game, Florida's not really looked like Florida. Even in the Tennessee game, they didn't look great. They ended up piling it on later in the game. But, I'm shocked it's only 14 points. I think Georgia's proven to be the number 1 team in the nation, and Florida's proven to not be a top 25 team in the nation. And I'd be shocked, although they are on the neutral site game, and it's a big atmosphere and things like that. That one would surprise me a little bit if that one stays close. We got 1 minute left, Dad. Who do you think is going to end up in the playoffs for college football?
Right now, I would think it'd be Georgia, Alabama, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma. I really like Oklahoma. I do think if Georgia beat Alabama in the SEC championship, Alabama might have trouble getting in with 2 losses this year if Oklahoma, Cincinnati stay undefeated and Ohio State only loses that 1 game.
So no 2-loss team has ever made the playoffs, and I don't think it would start this year either. Cincinnati, I'm interested to see once the rankings come out, the playoff rankings as opposed to the polls, if Cincinnati's as high as they are in these polls. Ohio State playing better. They're going to continue to move forward. Oklahoma dropped a spot. They got jumped by Alabama this week in the rankings, even though they did not lose. They're still undefeated. There's been some issues with Oklahoma, even at the quarterbacks there, but I know we have some faithful listeners from Oklahoma. including Coach McGuire there, Boomer Sooner. So we got some fans there, but Oklahoma scares me this year, and not in a good way. I'm not sure how they're going to finish out the season. I think Ohio State makes it in. I think you're going to see Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and I don't know who the fourth team is going to be, but I don't think it's Cincinnati. I think something will happen, whether they lose or have a close game and they get bumped down. Whatever reason, that's just the way things seem to work. We're out of time today, Dad. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Again, visit law-terrain.com. Use the code SPORTSTOVE for 10% off your purchase, and get yourself a watch or accessories there as well. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at SportsStove. Tune in again next Thursday for a live episode and Wednesday for our local hour covering Eastern Kentucky University athletics. Thank you so much for tuning into tonight's episode. Until next time, we'll see you